welcome everyone to another Industry in Transition Zoom call. I'm thrilled to have three guests today, and it's always a wild party when we have three people from Prudential. So we've got, if I say anything wrong name-wise, tell me, but I got to read it. Stephanie Rivas, Dustin Corrente, is that correct, Dustin? Am I saying that right?
All right,
and Jay Skolnick, which sounds like a linebacker for the Chicago Bears. I like that sort of old-fashioned name. That's great. Well, interesting. What I love about this is we're talking to folks who have experience in the field. You guys are close to the action there. All managing directors, all working in huge parts of the Prudential sales organization. Stephanie from New York, which is my hometown. Matter of fact, I have connections to all of these people. So Stephanie, I got a law degree in New York. I grew up in Brooklyn, and the only time I saw a horse had a cop on it. Now I'm in Virginia with Dustin because I'm in Middleburg, Virginia. So I live here now on a horse farm. So I'm actually close to where you are. And of course, we do a ton of business in California. So I love, I don't want to say for tax reasons that it's a boondoggle, but it's always nice when I go out there and visit and do business. We have a lot of fun. So you guys, with all these different, pieces of you're running the same business, right? But different parts of the country. This has been a crazy year, right? We never would have thought that this is what would have happened. And of course, Stephanie, I mean, New York is ground zero for all this stuff. So this is sort of where it all started. And, I don't want to start a conversation pretending that we're operating in a vacuum, right? We've had this tremendous pandemic. It's been stressful, but in a lot of ways, there's been, an awful lot of, positives too that have happened. But it certainly hit New York the hardest and hit first. How do you feel you and your advisors at Prudential handle, and your clients? How did it all work out?
It's funny, Tony, because I had advisors, we talked a lot about having to adapt, right, to this environment, and people need us more than ever. So we talked about having to strategize around operating in our business in a different way. And so we'd share with them all these tools and resources that they could use to be very efficient in a virtual environment. And I'd get calls and say, Stephanie, this stuff is amazing. Like, it's been there for 4 years. You've just you've never used it. So, I will say that I have advisors having the best year of their career. The efficiency level, the ability to work in a virtual environment has really been fantastic. And the best news is that the people that we never thought we could get on a Zoom call to have a financial conversation are so familiar with Zoom. Everyone has gotten online. And so that efficiency level has really been huge for us. And we talk about 3 things we can control in our firm, and that's your activity, your attitude, and your adaptability. And wow, 2020 really challenged us in that, but it turned out really well.
Well, that's great. I mean, I one of the things you said that's super interesting to me, and I've heard it, everywhere as I've talked to CEOs around the country, is we had this stuff. I mean, we're lucky we had it, because 10 years ago, I don't know that we would have been able, to do this. But the fact is, we did have this technology, and we were able to do business, in sort of a really positive way. Dustin, I guess for you, how in your mind has this, all the stuff that Stephanie was talking about, how has it changed our business and advisors on a daily basis, in a positive and maybe even a negative way? But
I think for the most part, the silver lining in all this, and Stephanie touched on it, was the greater efficiencies. We're constantly challenging our advisors to be better business owners and to be able to work more efficiently on a day-to-day basis. And, I think one of the things I've seen in the last 8 or 9 months here is essentially eliminating the driving to see clients, where advisors would spend hours every day in the car in some cases. And of course, it depends on the advisor and how their practice is made up. But the efficiency now with being able to communicate with clients, get things done faster. And what we're seeing through all of this is many clients actually prefer this method of communication, and they're, they don't want to come. A lot of people don't want to come into the office. And so I think and I've been in the business 20 years and I've done this myself. I think a lot of times we make up stuff in our mind that is maybe not the reality of what's going on. And we see advisors do that a lot, is they make up the reason for the client, when in reality, a lot of people have, I think, really taken to this virtual environment. And I know a lot of our advisors are really happy that they're able to shift their business and work in a different way to be more efficient.
Yeah, well, that's actually super interesting. It's great that Crew provides the outlet for that and the ability, right? The technology and also the support from you guys, right? The guys who are running stuff. So that brings up you, Jay. When you look at this, what are we going to keep? What are we going to lose and what are we going to keep from this? I mean, we were forced into this, right? These are all great ideas and everything you're saying is right and has been great, but we wouldn't have done this unless we were forced to do it. So what do you think it's going to start to look like and what are we going to keep from this experience, in our business going forward?
Well, to be honest with you, I actually hope we keep a lot of it. I mean, there's no replacing face-to-face interaction with customers, that emotional connection. All of that is crazy important. But to be honest, I agree with everything that you heard from Dustin and Stephanie. I hope what we keep, though, is the ease of doing business, meeting clients the way they want. And ultimately, we've all adapted to now learn probably 2 to 3 years of technology inside of 6 months. So ultimately, we don't have the fatigue of travel anymore. We don't have to worry about the expense of travel. I could have my reps deal with our wholesaling partners and set up constant client events that are much more efficient, inexpensive, and clients can adapt and come at their convenience. And it just makes doing business easier. So I hope a lot of that functionality stays. And candidly, and I'm sure we'll get to it ultimately, I mean, even for recruiting purposes, we're able to talk to people face-to-face via Skype or Zoom or whatever, and ultimately still have that connection about describing how we can add a lot of value in people's practice that maybe other firms are not.
Yeah, well, I've written this article called "What a 3-Year-Old Can Teach Us About Our Business," and it was all about how there's this next generation, greatest generation people. They're 75 or 80 years old, semi-ambivalent about technology. They use it, but it's not necessarily. They're not taking Instagram pictures of their food, right? But if they want to see their grandkids, they got to master Zoom. And once that happened, and then they realized I can see my doctor on Zoom because I don't want to go. I got COVID. I don't want to go into all these things. Well, where does that put us? I mean, we're one of the service providers. So now advisors have to act on almost a 24-hour basis, right? I mean, they're constantly, they have to be at the constant beck and call of their client. But there's now all the things you mentioned, the stuff that Jay mentioned, everybody, there's now an acceptance on the part of clients for this. And that's always going to drive what's going to be acceptable for financial advisors, right? I mean, that's always going to drive. I guess what I want to ask next is talk a little bit about the recruiting part of it, because this acceptance in my mind, recruiting was the one thing that we always did in person, right? And it was always, and I think had we talked about it, I thought in the very beginning of this thing that we were going to see a real downturn in recruiting because the markets were crazy. You couldn't see people. How are we going to do it? So Stephanie, you're in dead center of all this stuff, the beginning of the virus. How's it been going? How's it been impacted by it?
I think what it really highlighted was the organizations that kind of had their act together and the organizations that didn't. So for me to be able to hop on to a Zoom call with a candidate and walk through how we're not skipping a beat, how you don't have to see face-to-face, how we'll pay for you if New York has a lot of special rules and wet signature forms. And so there are a couple of things we have to overnight to clients. But for me to be able to say, we're going to take that burden off of you. My team is going to do any of that heavy lifting that you can't do. And here's the tools and resources that, by the way, we didn't have to create in the last month and try and figure them out. These have been on our platform. This is how we operate. So quite frankly, the recruiting conversations have been a little bit different than they have in the past, obviously, but I'm able to focus on not just here's how you can grow your practice at Prudential, because no one should move firms over, I want to make the same amount of money. I'm going to uproot my life and change my practice and go make the same. So we show you how we can exponentially grow your business. But I will tell you that having the tools and resources already in place and not being on the, behind the 8 ball on that has been really critical in a lot of the candidates that we've spoken to and that we've moved over, because it's such it could be a really big difference between organizations.
Jay, West Coast, same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I echo for sure a lot of what Stephanie said, but again, I think we were very ahead of the curve in terms of having resources that we could push out to candidates and screen share comp modeling. And again, no one's going to want to make a lateral move, but I think in this age where, Stephanie suggested it, I think it showed a lot of what companies really were about under the hood. And ultimately, for us, I feel like we were in a position where we were already doing virtual learning. We were already doing transition assistance. We were already in a position to support people so that we can help them with their practices, with leadership support and, disbanding staffs and a lot of different things that our company was already doing. And so I think we just hit it at the right time, to be honest.
So Dustin, for you, two parts, I guess. One is we talked a little bit about lateral moves. Obviously, you go to Prudential, you hope that you tell people this is an uptick, right? But we've got more better, and it's not just the tech, right? It's the platform and all that kind of stuff. So that would be, part one. And then part two for you would be, how do you see the future of recruiting, kind of based a little bit on what we said before? What are we going to keep from all this COVID stuff?
Yeah, I think, one of the things I always talk to my team about, and, the last 8 years working with this group in the Mid-Atlantic is when we specifically are looking at experience recruiting, it's really important. And I think sometimes we're running so fast that we forget about the little things, right? And someone is actually making a decision to uproot their entire business and their livelihood, and what kind of impact does that have on their family? How do all of those moving parts fit in? And like Stephanie mentioned, nobody should do that, to go from one frying pan to the next. So we have to come to the table with a value proposition that is substantially different. And, there's some things here at our firm that advisors come over and they're in love with, and they say, wow, this is amazing. And then there's a few things where they say, hey, this isn't as good. And that, I think that's always going to be the case. But our objective and what we focus on every day when we're working with advisors is really taking it very serious that they're making this massive decision in their life to move their business over, and incorporating that into the onboarding and showing them, even through the initial meetings or interviews that we're doing virtually now, how process driven we are. And I think rolling out the red carpet for them in each and every meeting, and them being able to observe how organized it is, and how each department fits together in order to support that move and that onboarding, I think has really helped us through this. I mean, we had a couple of months there of transition when we went fully virtual almost overnight. But I think, having that process and bringing it all together has really helped us continue to be successful with recruiting, and have experienced advisors come over to our firm, many of which we have never met with face-to-face until, the offer process, which is interesting.
Well, and I guess that's part of the thing. What amount of that do you think you're going to keep going forward? Because it sounds like you're doing everything you would do in a regular recruiting situation, but you're doing it virtually. Do you see that continuing, or there's a hybrid mix? I'm kind of a feeling that we're going to hybrid this thing out. Right? There are going to be some situations where everybody do virtual, but I'm sure you all can't wait to actually shake hands with people again.
I think the hybrid is probably spot on. I believe that there will be many situations where that initial conversation, particularly if someone isn't really close to one of the main offices, that's a no-brainer. It's very easy to do it. It also prevents us from having to schedule out a week or 2 weeks. I mean, we can talk to somebody today, and I could do a virtual meeting with them 3 hours later or the next day. And so it speeds up that process initially, but it also helps in the follow-up steps along the way, being able to get on with them virtually versus scheduling another in-person meeting.
Yeah, I think there's a level of acceptance from advisors that this is okay now. I think people would have been insulted if you didn't come to shake their hand in the beginning or last year, right? They would have felt differently. So this actually, seems to me like the one immutable piece that we have here, right? That's not going to change is advice. So no matter what we do, wherever kind of situation we are, whatever we have to do, with technology, that advice seems to be the key piece of it. How are you all positioning the firm for 2021, given that, hey, look, advice, I think that, advisors, our job in general has proven to be one of the most important things in our clients' lives, right? They do talk to us on a regular basis. They are confused about a whole bunch of things, and they're looking for a lot of help, and they're looking for advice. So, Stephanie, from you, how you're positioning 2021 for everybody?
I don't think, the vision of a firm, and every leader, the best leaders I've ever worked with always talk about what the vision of the organization is, and that they share that vision and can articulate that. I don't think our vision has changed as far as where we're headed and where we want to go. And at Prudential, focusing on holistic financial planning, that's not going to change for us. I think what has changed is our sense of passion around getting in front of more people and being strategic about how many people we can help. Because quite frankly, people had left things on the back burner. People had not gotten insurance. People had not done the retirement planning. I'll get to it. And we have to have more passion around, we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So I wouldn't say that my vision for 2021 is any different than the past, which is having the most professional, holistic advisors in the industry. That hasn't changed. But what has changed is my sense of urgency around people need us, and we can't wait anymore for them to, we have to get people motivated to take that action because it's important for them. And quite frankly, that's what fulfills us and makes us happier in our day-to-day job too.
Well, there's a sense in my mind, especially with what's going on, that there's a general acceleration, right? There's an acceleration of a lot of positives, and there's a deceleration of things that didn't work, and there's an acceleration of negatives too, right? But everything's sort of being condensed. We're getting a lot of time condensed into this thing. So I guess, Jay, what do you think we're going to accelerate with into 2021?
Well, I'll build off of what Stephanie said. I mean, ultimately, the value of advice is just crucial. I mean, ultimately, people are willing to pay for quality advice, and whether it's on a retainer basis through wealth management advice or fee-based basis, I don't see that changing whatsoever. I guess to build off of what Stephanie shared, for me, I think the value also going forward next year is the importance of building on teams and collaboration. Ultimately, I think a lot of people probably realize that traditional methods of prospecting and networking and that sort of thing don't work. And so you have to rely on other people's skill sets to complement, to expand on getting deep relationships with our customers. And ultimately, I think the other thing that I would say into next year, and I'm sure they would agree, is the value of our lead programs and our in-force. I mean, we have a tremendous brand that has a tremendous legacy with a lot of customers, whether they be individual or group. And so I think what I definitely could say into next year is I plan to really make sure we leverage those resources that we have and expand on the relationships that we're sitting on, because I think it's going to add a tremendous value to the people that are in the organization countrywide for sure.
Yeah, I think, when I think about acceleration and what's going to happen, how we're going to have, there'll be more Zoom, right? We're going to have definitely more of these Zoom calls, but the in-person stuff's not going to totally go away. Do you see, Dustin, that maybe Jay mentioned a little bit about prospecting and how teams help with prospecting, but I'm seeing a little bit of back to the future here too. When I started out in the business, we used to, we were able to cold call, first of all, but we call around the country from New York City, and they wanted a New York City broker. You might remember that, Stephanie, although you're probably too young, but it was something we used to be able to do all the time. And, now with this Zoom technology and the acceptance of clients that they don't have to come into your office, are you seeing, the opportunity for good advisors, Dustin, to sort of expand their network using Zoom, like, out of state, out of county, or just in ways they couldn't have before?
Yes, absolutely. We've actually seen a record increase this year in client acquisition, which is funny because we're in the middle of a pandemic. And I think getting back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago in terms of efficiencies, not only do we have, Jay mentioned the leads programs that we have here at Prudential. And I think now we have almost 30 different sources of leads that flow in through to the advisors.
Wow.
But many of our advisors, in the Mid-Atlantic are also utilizing other resources to get in front of new prospects or high value prospects. And the ability to do that, again, in a more efficient way, utilizing Zoom or Microsoft Teams, whatever it is, it has helped in a major way bring clients on and do it faster. Because again, if someone can just hop on a virtual call versus finding time to get a babysitter, to leave the house, to drive 40 minutes to visit with the advisor, do the meeting, go back. I mean, that's a whole process. That's a whole deal versus they can just, if you're meeting with a husband and wife, they can just sit at their kitchen table and have that discussion, and it just changes the whole thing. So it's been very positive.
It's also, I think another acceleration is going to be good advisors are going to start to do better. So the ones that do this holistic stuff, at some point in this next quarter, the market's going down, right? So this seems to be a consensus, and the Emperor is going to have no close. And the advisors who are just, hey, I'm just going to stick you in some ETFs or whatever. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with you or ask you the right questions or spend the Zoom time that you want, that those people are going to be in trouble. And the people who have done well are going to do well. You agree with that, Stephanie? So you're nodding your head.
I do. And it's funny you mentioned that because I was teaching a class on how to run effective Zoom meetings and how to try and bridge that gap of not being face-to-face. And I said, the days of you running to grab a file while the client's in the lobby and not be prepared are over. Like, you have to have consistency in your message. You need to have agendas. You need to be prepared. So I will tell you that people have either excelled in that or they have really had a learning curve in trying to run meetings more professionally, more efficiently. But that was a joke that, the assistant would call the advisor and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith is here. And I see people scrambling for files and okay, great. I'm ready. So yes, that dichotomy, I think that is going to continue to, you'll see the polarization there a little bit more.
And you'll see advisors, taking clients. I think some of this growth that you're talking about is going to the right people, right? The better, more efficient advisors, more prepared they're the ones who are getting the clients. And if you're sitting on your hands or sitting on your ass, you're not getting clients and you're losing them to people who are working hard, So Jay, you agree with that? Obviously, I see you're not in.
Oh yeah, I don't think any one of us will disagree that the business we're in is really not for the timid. And what you just described is, the people that lean into the resources that are available are the ones that are thriving. And, Dustin said it, I know Stephanie would agree. I mean, many of our producers are having their best year right now because, again, when, clients are anxious and there's so much angst out there for a multitude of reasons, people want peace of mind, they want certainty, and they need us. So again, ultimately, the folks that are leaning into this right now are the ones that are absolutely thriving, and I'm sure in any one of our organizations.
One thing I do want to clarify, because obviously people know Prudential, they know the insurance part, they may not know so much the wealth management part. You mentioned a couple times, and I just wanted clarification. Somebody lead programs. Boy, that's something I would have liked when I was starting my business. Who wants to explain how that lead program works, just simply for the audience? Because that sounds like everyone has mentioned it. Tell me, I don't know anything about it. How does it work? I'm going to pick somebody if you don't raise your hand. All right, Jay, go ahead. Yeah, he's ready to go.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And you guys can color commentary anything I forget, but there's probably about 24 or more different lead programs that, again, leverage our in-force that we've had forever. I mean, I started in this company in 1992, and there was a large book of business I was given. And, the company is not the same company anymore. We have a lot of groups that we do business with. Where I am in Irvine here, traditionally, when we're able to work, I have group retirement and I have group life insurance housed in my firm. And so ultimately, they have clients that we cross-pollinate and do rollovers with and group conversions with. And, whether it be servicing our in-force or term conversions or, just, again, our job as leaders is to help get appointments and activities for our advisors. And we're fortunate that the company has tremendous lead programs to help with activity. And I certainly can tell you over the last 9 months, my advisors have absolutely appreciated the additional support and activity.
Yeah, I was just going to say on top of what Jay said, what I see a lot when we're talking to different experienced advisors and throughout the recruiting process is just providing a basic education on how Prudential is structured. And what we find a lot is people don't realize how many different businesses there are under the Prudential umbrella. A great example is the group insurance side. I think we have over 20 million, group insurance clients there. Prudential Retirement is its own business. So the pension and the 401k business it provides a tremendous resource for us. And then what kind of brings it all together is a corporate education or financial wellness program called Prudential Pathways, which for any of the advisors, and I don't know how many we have across the country now, but it's several hundred, I think, that are certified to do the financial literacy and financial wellness workshops. We go into these Fortune 500 companies and present these series of workshops to a captive audience. And there's no better lead than that anybody could, put in front of me as an advisor or anybody else. I mean, that's a great opportunity. And many of our advisors in the platform have grown their business in a huge way with that program.
Stephanie, you're in the most competitive marketplace in the country, or one at least, certainly top two, somewhere there. They must appreciate the lead programs and other. What else might be a competitive advantage in that space?
Yeah, so here's the thing. A lot of companies out there will say, we have leads. We've got leads. 9 times out of 10, they're talking about existing clients who have been called 14 different times by 14 different advisors and who are shuffled around. The difference about Prudential's lead programs is that we are going to give you people that not only need a product or a service or a conversation, they have a triggering event. They were downsized at their job and they've got to figure out what to do with their group life insurance, or they're leaving or retiring and they've got a pension or a 401k. Not many organizations out there can provide leads that not just here's a great name that has a relationship somehow to Prudential, but here's a great lead or a great name. They also need something now because there's something seriously changing in their world. And that's when I talk to advisors, and even in my uber competitive environment, where basically now we're just doing sales in Southern California to fix that. But in our crazy competitive environment, no other firm can say that we are giving you leads every single week, by the way. These aren't, they don't give the leads to me and I give them to my favorite 3 advisors and it's off to the races. The company has an algorithm and a system. Yeah, exactly. So that's incredible too. The way we distribute them is very unique in the business as well.
That's great. Well, look, I could talk about leads all day because I know advisors are interested in that, but we have to sort of wrap it up here. It's been a great conversation. I think that's a great way to sort of, and we should do this again. I'd love to follow up with you guys when see how things are going in 2021, and if we continue sort of on this great path. So thanks for being here and sharing all your thoughts. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony.